Live from San Diego, this is the Fox 5 Morning News at 7.
7:20 now. Active shooter situations have become a tragic reality, but is there a way to protect yourself?
Joining us now is Michael Julian. He is the CEO of MPS Security and author of 10 Minutes to Live. Michael, good morning.
Good morning.
It's a horrible occasion whenever we have to talk to you on the news like this, but tell us, first of all, with the incident in Florida, it seemed from a layman's point of view, they did everything right. Like if you go in with your company and tell them what to do, it seemed like they would listen and they did it all. And yet this still happens. What do you do in this scenario?
Well, first of all, there's a million different scenarios when this sort of thing happens. No training is going to be specific enough unless you go through every single scenario. The training has to be done for the kids and the students, the students and the teachers, and then it's got to be practiced over and over again. I wasn't there, so I can't armchair quarterback, but I can tell you that unfortunately with people's nature, sometimes no matter how much training they have, they just freeze. And I don't know, I'm guessing some of these kids were so scared, they hid under a desk like we were taught as kids, where they can be seen and they're easy targets.
They treat it like an earthquake drill or a fire drill.
100% correct.
And that's not the mentality for it.
You talk about the hiding under the desks. Over the weekend, Michael, there was video that came out of these kids and what was happening during that time, and they were screaming and they were frozen and they were hiding under their desks. What would a child, whether it's a teenager down to the little kindergartners, do in a situation like this? How do you prepare kids to be ready for this, which is already so tragic that we have to have these conversations?
Sure. Yeah, well, it's going to be a completely different scenario when you're talking about small children to high school to adults. Now, high school, their bodies are at least more developed than a smaller child. They are stronger, they are faster, so that's different. My training focuses on people usually from 12 years old and up. Okay. And the same principles apply. You get as far away as you can, as quickly as you can, or you make it difficult or impossible for the killer to get to you, or you actually attack with the intent to kill, because you have to put 100% of commitment into that in order to hopefully succeed.
Let's talk about the workshops you have. They're called Alive. What do those letters stand for, and kind of take us through the first couple of steps of what you teach folks in something like this? Sure.
So Alive is assess, leave, impede, violence, and expose. I teach to stop, take a breath, get some oxygen to your brain, and then react logically, not emotionally. That's the assess part. Leave, obviously, is get as far away as you can, as quickly as you can, while dialing 911, because it is a race against time. The sooner law enforcement can get there, the sooner this thing's going to end, whether by the gunman's own hand or by law enforcement. Right. Impede is obviously make it as difficult as humanly possible for someone to get to you. If you're a hard target, they're going to move on to somebody that isn't, so you have a better chance of living. Violence is obviously you are going to attack that person if that's your only option, and you're going to do it with every ounce of your being, because you have got to overcome that killer. And then expose, obviously, as you saw in the video, law enforcement is going to treat you like a suspect, which makes sense because it turns out the kid left with the rest of the kids. So everyone was a suspect at that point, and he was successful at getting away. You've got to expose yourself very carefully. One, there may be more shooters, even though you think it's over, and two, law enforcement doesn't know if you're a good guy or a bad guy. So last thing you want to do is come running around a corner with a cell phone in your hand and go like that.
Wow. There was a lady, from what I hear, who took your class, and she says what the skills that she learned actually saved her life in the Las Vegas shooting. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so a woman named Liz Moreno, her employer a couple of years ago hired me to come in and teach their 100 people staff. She was in that training, and she said, I'd never thought about that one day since. The training was fine, but I never even thought I would ever need it. 2 years later, she ends up, hitting the dirt because people are being killed right around her. So her and her boyfriend go down as Paddock is shooting at the concert. Oh. And she said, at that moment, suddenly the training came back out of my subconscious to my conscious. I knew exactly what to do. She turned to her boyfriend and said, when the shooting stops, we're running. And he says, no, I don't think so. And she said, I'm going with you or without you. Wow. So he said, okay, the shooting stopped. They got up, took off running. He was reloading. When it started again, they took cover. When he stopped to reload, they ran again, and they escaped. And she said, I would have just laid there and hoped it would have ended, and very possibly either been stampeded over by the people that were running or shot by this guy. So she said that's what came back to her, and so she knew what to do.
It's just having the wherewithal, because a lot of people just can't fathom this happening, and it's the, like you said, it's like the seconds that it takes from the fact that you recognize something's happening to the time you react that can mean the difference between life and death.
Yeah.
We heard so many stories of these students, a lot of them hiding under their desks, not knowing what to do, scared and screaming. And then there were a few, one young man who I think was in the ROTC who stood there, and it just came to him naturally. He opened the door and let more students in. Because he let everybody in, he was killed. So what does it take in terms of recognizing in the moment, this is happening, you got to act?
Well,
How do we train our minds to do that?
The key word is training,
Yeah.
Raul. You have got to take training, you've got to practice the training, and then you've got to practice again. When you're 5 years old and someone says, what's 2 + 2? You don't know, so you sit there and think. Well, you're dead.
Yep.
When you're 6, you've been taught, now you're trying to put it down on paper. 5 seconds, now you have the answer, you're dead. When you're 7, you know the answer is 4. 2 + 2 is 4. You give the answer. There's no thought. You just do what your training tells you to do.
Michael, if there's somebody watching right now and they want to learn more about, like, is it a class that they would come and take with you? How would they do that?
We do them locally at in my corporate headquarters here in Southern California, but I actually teach them all over the country to companies and their employees. But the website is activeshootersurvivaltraining.com. That's got all the information, and then it's also got information on the book as well.
We'll get that information up on our website if people want to look into it. Thank you for being here.
My
It's
pleasure.
Unfortunate we have to have
Very.
these conversations and talk about training against an active shooter,
Yes,
but
it is.
if that's what needs to be done to protect yourself, then
We're
so
gonna
be
do
it.
it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Michael.